Today we're going to learn how to make this beautiful crochet newsboy hat, also known as a flat cap or a scully cap. This pattern is super easy and quick. Make it today and match it to one of your outfits tomorrow. This pattern was inspired by Onevirtuouswoman's Crochet hat. I'm going to leave all her information down below. She gave me permission to do my own rendition on her hat. I made a couple changes to make it a little bit more snug to the head, but quick warning, if you have big natural hair, you might have trouble fitting your hair underneath this cap right here. I have mine slicked back into a ponytail. If you do, I recommend you follow Onevirtuouswoman's crochet pattern, linked down below. She uses an elastic band around her hat and it cinches more closely to the head. So make sure you do check out her stuff no matter what. So the materials that I'm using for this pattern, I am using 2 crochet hooks. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook and a 4mm crochet hook. The 5mm is for pretty much the whole hat, and the 4mm is for the brim of the hat, which is created holding 2 strands of yarn. Also, if you would like to follow along to the free written pattern, that's going to be linked down below. And if there's ever any adjustments to this pattern, it's going to be made on my blog, linked down below. Also, please make sure you follow along to the written gauge. If you get your gauge wrong, your hat might be too big or too small. So the gauge for this pattern is 7 single crochets equals 2 inches or 6mm, and 8 single crochet rows equals 2 inches or 6 centimeters. But don't worry if you don't know how to do gauge. When we make it along to the 8th row, I stop the pattern there and I pull out my measuring tape to help you know how to do your gauge before you're too far into the pattern. So if it's too big or too small, adjust your hook size. All right, guys, we're going to hop directly into this pattern. We're going to begin with a 5mm crochet hook. We're going to begin with a chain of 15. You can pause your video here and meet me when you have your 15. Once you're ready, we're going to start single crocheting into the second chain from the hook. Personally, I like to work into the back loops because this will be easier once we go further along in our hat. So here is the little back little hump. You just turn your work. Here's the front. Turn it over and you'll be working into the bumps behind it. So pause your video here and continue single crocheting all the way across. At the end of row number 1, you should have a total of 14 single crochets. To begin row number 2, we're going to chain 1, turn your work. We're going to single crochet into that very first stitch. And in your second stitch, we're going to place 2 single crochets. 1, back into the same stitch. 2. Now we're going to single crochet all the way across. I want you to continue single crocheting until you make it to the last 2 stitches. So pause your video here and I'll meet you at the very last 2 stitches. We've made it to the last 2 stitches, and in your next stitch you're going to place 2 single crochets. We're matching the other side. 1, back into the same stitch. 2, and single crochet into the next stitch. To begin row number 3, we're going to chain 1, turn your work. We're going to single crochet in each stitch all the way across. So pause your video here and continue to place single crochets all the way across your row. We've made it to the end of row number 3. And now you're just going to repeat the last 2 rows for the next 6 rows. So this next row will be chain 1. We're going to place a single crochet in this first stitch and 2 single crochet in the next. Then single crochet all the way across until you make it to your last 2 stitches, which will have 2 single crochets in this one and 1 in the last stitch. Followed by your next row, which just would be single crochet all the way across. So if you can't remember, I'm going to write that pattern for the next 2 rows up above and also a timestamp to row number 2 that follows into 3 so you can follow along super easy. Remember, repeat this for the next 6 rows. At the end of 6 rows, you should have a total of 22 single crochets. Pause your video here and I'll meet you at the end. We've just completed row number 9, and you should have a total of 22 stitches going across. At this point, this is the perfect time to check your gauge. So remember, your gauge is 7 single crochets equals 2 inches, and 8 rows equals 2 inches. So if you was to lay your measuring tape down, and you'll be able to count over 7 single crochets, that would equal 2 inches. Turn your work to the side, and remember, 8 rows equals 2 inches. To make that an easy count, you see how these kind of blocks up in individual blocks? Each one of these blocks are two rows of single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a total of 8 single crochet rows. All right. For row number 10 through 30, we're just going to chain 1, turn your work, and put single crochets in each stitch all the way across. So for rows 10 through 30, that is a total of 21 rows. We're just going to single crochet across. So pause your video here, and I'll meet you at the end of those 21 rows, or once you make it to row number 30. We made it to the end of row number 30, and this is what your work should look like. To start row number 31, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. We're going to single crochet 2 together. To do that, you're going to go into that first stitch, pull up a loop, go into the second stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. That is a single crochet together. Now we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across, but we are going to stop when you make it to the last 2 stitches. So pause your video here, and I'll meet you at the last 2 stitches of this row. We've made it to the last 2 stitches of this row, and we're going to place another single crochet 2 together. Remember, go into that first stitch, pull up a loop, next stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And that completes row number 31. Chain 1 and turn your work. We're going to repeat this last row 4 more times. So remember, we're going to single crochet 2 together, single crochet all the way across until you make it to your last 2, and once again, you're going to single crochet 2 together. We're going to do this for 4 more rows. So pause your video here, and I'll meet you at the completion of those 4 rows. We've just completed row number 35, and you should have a total of 12 stitches remaining. And this is what your work should look like. At this time, I want you to put a little stitch marker in the front of your work so you know it's the front, which will be the one with 14 single crochets. Because we'll need to remember this when the hat's all finished. Alright, so now we're just going to single crochet all the way around your work. And it'll add up to a total of 96 stitches. You'll have 12 stitches here, 35 stitches going down the side, 14 here, and 35 going up the side. I know how difficult it can be to find stitches when you're working with single crochets on the side of them, so let me show you how to do that. At the beginning, we're going to chain 1. That does not count as a stitch. Let me get close. You see these little holes? That is single crocheting into the first row. You see the next hole? We're going to go right there. Each one of these little holes is a row. You see the next hole right there. And you should have a total of 35 going down the side for all of your 35 rows. And remember, and you're going to go right across the top again. So pause your video here, continue single crocheting all the way around your work for a total of 96 stitches, and I'll meet you at the other side. We've made it to the end of round number 1, and you should have, like I said, a total of 96 stitches. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, you should use a stitch marker so you can identify your first stitch. But if you made it all the way around without a stitch marker, I'll help you identify your first stitch. Let me zoom in correctly. You'll know your last stitch was at your, remember, those single crochet 2 together. That was your last stitch, your 96th stitch. And remember, we chained 1, so that one doesn't count. And we're going to slip stitch to join into that very first stitch. Remember, the chain 1 right here does not count as a stitch. And we're going to slip stitch to join into that first one. Chain 1. Single crochet back into that stitch. And to be a smart girl this time, add a stitch marker so you can identify where this round ends and begins. Alright, for the next 3 rounds, we're just going to single crochet all the way around, slip stitching the join at the very end. Super simple. So pause your video here. For the next 3 rounds, single crochet in each stitch all the way around and slip stitch the join at the end of each. Pause your video here and I'll meet you at the completion of those rounds. We've made it to the end of round number 4, and this is what your work should look like. Now we're going to start decreasing and making our hat less wide. So let's slip stitch the join into that very first single crochet to start round number 5. Chain 1. And now begins our pattern repeat. We're going to single crochet into the next 4 stitches. So back into that same stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. Remember, you're going to the next stitch, pull up a loop, next stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. That is going to be our pattern repeat. Single crochet into the next 4, followed by a decrease. I'll work with you one more time. So we're going to single crochet into the next 4 stitches. I'm going to be moving faster. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now single crochet 2 stitches together. Alright, that is our pattern repeat all the way around. Single crochet into the next 4 stitches, followed by a single crochet 2 together, all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the other side. We've almost made it to the end of round number 5, and I'm just going to do those last 2 stitches with you, which is a single crochet 2 together. And we're going to slip stitch into that first single crochet to join. And at the very end of round number 5, you should have a total of 80 stitches. For round number 6 and round number 7, we're going to chain 1, and we're just going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So for the next 2 rounds, we're going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and remember to slip stitch to join at the end. So pause your video here and I'll meet you at the completion of those 2 rounds. We've made it to the end of round number 7, and we're going to slip stitch to join into the first single crochet. Chain 1. Now begins round number 8. The pattern repeat is single crochet into the next 3 stitches, followed by single crochet 2 together. I'll work it with you. So back into that same stitch. That's 1, 2, and 3, followed by a single crochet 2 together. I'll work it with you one more time. Single crochet into the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Now single crochet 2 together. That is going to be your pattern repeat all the way across. So single crochet into the next 3 stitches, followed by a single crochet 2 together. Pause your video here and I'll meet you back at the other side. We've almost made it to the end of round number 8. All that's left is that last single crochet 2 stitches together. I'll work it with you. Now we're going to slip stitch to join into that very first single crochet. Chain 1. For the next 4 rounds, we're just going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So remember, back into that same stitch and single crochet in each stitch around. So pause your video here, Continue placing 1 single crochet in each stitch around for a total of 4 rounds. Pause your video here and I'll meet you at the completion. We completed those rounds of single crochet, and now we're just going to slip stitch to join and fasten off our work. Now we're going to start working on our brim. To get the first position for your brim in the front of your hat, I want you to count from where you slip stitch to join over 24 stitches. So count over 24 stitches, and we're going to place a stitch marker in that 24th stitch. And then you're going to count over 17 stitches and place another stitch marker. This is going to be the brim of our hat. It's going to be 17 stitches wide. Also, we're dropping down to a 4mm crochet hook and working with 2 strands of yarn at the same time. All right, let's attach our yarn. Now we're going to single crochet into that same stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, and 2 single crochet into the next stitch. 1 back into the same stitch, 2. That is going to be our pattern repeat all the way across. So we're going to place 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, followed by 2 single crochet into the same stitch. I'll show you one more time. Single crochet into the next 2 stitches, 1, next stitch, 2, 2 single crochet into the next stitch, 1 back into the same stitch, 2. Alright, continue with this pattern repeat all the way across. 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, followed by an increase. Pause your video here and I'll meet you when you make it to this other stitch marker. We've almost made it to the end of the row. We've almost made it to the end of the first row for the brim, and I have 2 stitches remaining. I just did an increase, so now I'm going to single crochet 1 in the next 2 stitches. 1, take out the stitch marker, and 2 for the last stitch. Alright, so now for our next row, row number 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. We're going to be placing single crochets into the back loop. Let me show you. See how you see this V right here? We're going to be placing the stitch, focus, in the very back loop. Let me adjust my, here we go. Back loop single crochets all the way across. Back loop. So pause your video here. Continue placing back loop single crochets all the way across the brim. We've almost made it to the end of row number 2 for your brim. Next, we are going to half double crochet into the unused stitch down below. So half double crochet and slip stitch into that very next stitch to finish off this row. For the next row, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. We're just going to be working regular single crochets all the way across, working through both of the stitches. Your first single crochet will not be that slip stitch. Let's see if we can get it close. Will not be that first slip stitch that we just finished. We're going to single crochet into that next half double crochet. Now continue single crocheting all the way across. Pause your video here and I'll meet you at the other side. We've made it to the end of this row, and we're going to do the same thing that we did on the opposite end. We're going to place a half double crochet into the unused stitch down below. And slip stitch into that very next stitch. Chain 1 and turn your work. We're going to be working a pattern repeat all the way across. We're going to place 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches, followed by an increase. Alright, so remember, we're skipping that first slip stitch, the last slip stitch that we completed on the previous row, and we're going to work into that next half double crochet. So let's do our 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and increase. That means 2 single crochets into the same stitch. 1, 2. That is going to be our pattern repeat all the way across the brim. So 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches, followed by 2 single crochets into the same stitch. Pause your video here and I'll meet you at the other side. We made it to the very end of this row, and once again we're going to half double crochet into that stitch down below. Slip stitch into that next stitch. Chain 1, and this is our very last row, and we're just going to single crochet all the way across. Remember, skipping that first slip stitch, working into that next half double crochet stitch with a single crochet. Alright, so pause your video here. Continue placing single crochets all the way across the brim, and I'll meet you at the very last stitch. We made it to the very end of this row, and just like before, we're going to half double crochet into that next unworked stitch down below. And we are going to slip stitch into that next stitch. And you can fasten off your work. Alright, make sure you weave in all your ends. Next, I'm going to show you how to get your hat all together so you can have that nice little cool little cinch brim. This is what your hat should look like all done. So let me show you how I get this brim part of it. Alright, this is the hat we just worked on. And we're going to want it cinched like so. In order to make this easier so I don't show you exactly how I sewed it, what I did, I took 3 loose strands, 1 for the center of the hat, 1 for the side of the hat, and I kept this tail that we cut off from the brim. What I'm going to do is weave this through, tie a knot. Weave this through, tie a knot. And then your hat will be all done. I hope that makes sense. It's always such a pain to sew on camera. And then you'll be all done. Some people, they don't even need that. You can add a snap or just leave it open like so. Let me take this out so it looks better. Let's try it on a hat, how it looks open. And some people like to wear it like this.